You've been taught that love looks a certain way. Constant attention, open expression, emotional transparency. You've been told that when someone loves you, they show it, they say it, they lean in without hesitation. But what if that's only part of the truth? What if love doesn't always arrive wrapped in clarity and confidence? What if sometimes the one who loves you the most is the one who seems the most distant? Avoidant behavior is easy to misunderstand. It's easy to label it as indifference or emotional coldness. It's tempting to conclude that silence means apathy, that withdrawal equals rejection. But here's the truth no one tells you. Avoidance can be love in disguise. Not a love that's broken, but a love that's afraid. A love that's learned to hide in order to survive. A love that doesn't know how to show up, not because it's absent, but because it's overwhelmed. Behind avoidant behavior is a person who feels everything too deeply. Someone who learned long ago that emotional exposure is dangerous. That opening up leads to loss, disappointment, or even betrayal. So they learn to close down. They learn to retreat. They built internal systems not to keep others out of hatred, but to protect their most vulnerable parts. Their love doesn't move in straight lines. It coils and hesitates. It waits for safety before revealing its depth. When he pulls away, it's not necessarily because he doesn't want you. It's often because he wants you so much it terrifies him. His silence is not a sign of emotional vacancy. It's a coping mechanism, a shield, a desperate attempt to regain control when feelings begin to rise like a tide he can't hold back. The more he feels, the more dangerous it becomes. Not because you are dangerous, but because closeness threatens to undo everything he but protect himself from past pain. And yet, in this paradox, you stand at the crossroads. Because what looks like avoidance might actually be devotion, trapped in fear. What appears like apathy might be deep love with no language. He's not numb. He's saturated. He's not uncaring. He's overwhelmed. And in his world, pulling away feels safer than falling in. It feels familiar, predictable, controlled. But here's what most people miss. Avoidants don't run because they don't feel. They run because they feel everything and are terrified they'll lose themselves in the emotion. They fear needing someone. They fear being fully seen. And most of all, they fear becoming dependent on a connection that could disappear. Their nervous system doesn't register intimacy as pleasure, it registers it as risk. The closer they get, the more threatened they feel. So they do the only thing they know. Retreat, protect, survive. It's easy to take this personally, easy to think you're not enough, easy to believe you've done something wrong. But this is not about your worth. This is about how he was shaped, about how he learned to equate closeness with danger, about how love in its purest form triggers not only joy, but ancient wounds that have never fully healed. Avoidant behavior is not the absence of love. It is the presence of fear tangled up in love. And fear can be loud. Fear can be messy. Fear can look like shutting down, backing off, disconnecting. But underneath it all, there's something real, something raw, something fighting to come forward. The next time you face his silence, don't rush to interpret it as disinterest. Don't assume his retreat means he doesn't care. Pause. Look deeper. Ask yourself, what if this is his way of feeling too much, not too little? What if his pulling away is not rejection, but self-preservation? Because sometimes the ones who push you away are the ones who are silently begging for love that feels safe enough to stay. And the moment you stop seeing his avoidance as a verdict against you and start recognizing it as a wound still healing is the moment you step into your power. The power to see clearly, the power to love wisely, the power to navigate love not as a game of certainty, but as a journey through the vulnerable spaces we've all been taught to fear. This is the truth no one tells you. But now that you know, you can never unsee it. There is a wall. You've felt it. You've run into it 100 different ways. Through unanswered questions, inconsistent affection, sudden coldness, and silence that arrives without explanation. It's invisible, but its presence is undeniable. That wall isn't made of hatred. It isn't made of cruelty or punishment. It's made of fear, of past wounds sealed in silence, and of survival strategies built brick by brick over years of emotional uncertainty. You need to understand something. That wall wasn't built for you. It existed before you, long before love entered the picture. That wall was forged childhood, shaped in past relationships, constructed in moments of betrayal, abandonment, or emotional chaos. It was a defense, a necessary fortress to make sense of a world that felt unsafe. And now even in love, even in the presence of something beautiful, it still stands. Because it's not logical. It's emotional memory. And emotional memory doesn't respond to facts, it responds to familiarity. You may see his behavior and think, if he truly loved me, he'd let me in. But love doesn't automatically unlock doors. For someone with avoidant tendencies, love is not a cue to open up. It's often the exact reason they retreat. Because love, real love, threatens the entire system they've built to stay safe. It demands vulnerability. It invites surrender. And those things, to someone with an armored heart, feel like danger, not connection. Avoidants don't fear you. They fear what your closeness awakens inside of them. They fear the flood of emotions they've tried so long to suppress. They fear the feeling of needing someone. Because needing once led to pain, depending once led to being disappointed, betrayed, or emotionally abandoned. So they taught themselves, consciously or unconsciously, that it's better not to need at all. Better to rely on self. Better to keep people at just enough distance where they can't really touch the most sensitive parts. But don't confuse guardedness with the absence of love. That wall is not proof of indifference. It's a signal that something inside of him still doesn't feel safe. He could love you deeply and still not know how to express it. He could crave connection and still sabotage it. He could want to be close and still push you away. That's the paradox of avoidant love. It's not about desire, it's about emotional survival. The wall you feel isn't meant to hurt you. It's there because in his world, it's the only thing that's ever made him feel protected. To him, closeness equals exposure. Exposure equals risk, and risk equals potential loss. He's not calculating these things consciously. It's wired into his nervous system. And until he learns that safety doesn't come from distance, but from presence, he will continue to default to what he knows control detachment and self-reliance. You might be tempted to climb that wall, to tear it down with force, but this isn't a battle to be won. It's an emotional terrain to be understood. You cannot demand vulnerability. You cannot yank open a heart that is terrified, but you can choose to understand that his distance isn't personal. It's protect. His inconsistency isn't manipulation. It's confusion. And his emotional silence isn't hatred. It's learned defense. That doesn't mean you excuse all behavior. That doesn't mean you abandon your needs or silence your own pain to accommodate someone else's fear. But it does mean you begin to see the truth beneath the pattern. You stop assigning cruel motives to what might be a scared heart. You stop translating emotional armor as proof that you're not enough. And you start realizing that some people don't know how to receive love. Not because they don't want it, but because they've never felt safe having it. This wall can only come down when he's ready. But your clarity about why it exists, that's your power, that's your peace. And that's how you stop making his fear about your value. The wall isn't your fault, but your understanding of it, that could change everything. You feel it the moment it happens. One day things feel connected, open, even promising, and then suddenly, without warning, the energy shifts. He pulls back, his response is short, and his eyes seem distant. You asked yourself if you said something wrong, if you got too close, if you imagined it all. Your heart goes into overdrive, trying to make sense of what you can't explain. But here's what you need to know. Because withdrawal is not the absence of emotion. It's often the sign that too much emotion is surging through him. When he pulls away, it doesn't always mean he's losing interest. More often, it means something inside of him has been triggered. Not by something you did, but by what your presence represents: intimacy, closeness, vulnerability. For someone with avoidant tendencies, that closeness is the very thing they crave and fear the most. In those moments when things feel good, when connection is flowing naturally, that's precisely when it becomes terrifying. Why? Because it's in those very moments that they begin to feel like they have something to lose. The risk increases. The emotions intensify, and suddenly, what once felt safe starts to feel like danger to their nervous system. It's not that the connection became wrong. It's that it became real. And real is scary when your past has taught you that love isn't permanent. That closeness can collapse without warning. So he shuts down. He disconnects. He goes cold, not because he doesn't feel, but because he feels so much that it overwhelms him. His emotional bandwidth is limited. His regulation system has not yet evolved to process emotional intensity without shutting the system down. In his world, withdrawal is self-preservation. It's not a statement against you. It's an internal reflex against vulnerability. The problem is, your heart doesn't see it that way. You interpret his silence as a statement about your worth. You see the emotional retreat as a red flag, a betrayal, a disappearance of care. And in doing so, you miss the truth. His pullback may be proof that this matters to him more than he can handle. It's easy to assume that people who love you should always move toward you. But not everyone was taught that love is safe. Not everyone associates intimacy with peace. For some, the deeper the love becomes, the louder the fear becomes too. Fear of messing up. Fear of not being enough. Fear of depending on someone they can't control. Fear of their emotions being too visible, too exposed, too vulnerable. So rather than lean in, he withdraws. He needs space, not to decide whether he loves you, but to regulate the storm inside him. He doesn't know how to ask for reassurance. He doesn't know how to say, this is getting real and it scares me. He doesn't know how to stay open while feeling emotionally unsafe. So he does the only thing he knows. He steps back to breathe, to reestablish emotional distance, to avoid drowning in what he's never been taught to navigate. But here's the danger: if you don't understand what's happening, you might assume the worst. You might chase him, pressure him, demand answers that he doesn't have the capacity to give. Or you might shut down yourself, deciding that his retreat is proof that you're unwanted. Either reaction feeds the cycle of disconnection. To break that cycle, you need to see his pullback not as rejection, but as an old defense pattern. You need to recognize that his nervous system is doing what it was conditioned to do. Protect him from closeness that feels out of control. It doesn't mean you excuse harmful behavior. It doesn't mean you wait around endlessly. But it does mean you stop personalizing what is, at its core, emotional overwhelm masquerading as apathy. Because withdrawal doesn't mean he doesn't love you. It might mean he doesn't know how to love without losing himself. It might mean he's terrified of relying on something outside of his own walls. And until he learns that love and danger are not the same thing, this pattern will repeat. But now, you see it for what it is. His silence is not emptiness. It's a cry for space to feel safe again. His pullback is not abandonment. It's a retreat to a place where he knows how to breathe. And your awareness of that, that's not weakness. That's wisdom. It's easy to feel helpless in the presence of avoidant behavior. You try to connect, but the more you reach out, the more he pulls back. You express your needs, but they seem to bounce off a wall he doesn't even realize he's built. Over time, you begin to wonder if you're asking for too much, if you're expecting something that just doesn't exist, if maybe you should shrink yourself, silence your truth, become less, just to keep the peace. But here's the truth. You are not powerless in this dynamic. You are not stuck. You are not invisible. You are not voiceless. Just because someone else doesn't know how to meet you emotionally doesn't mean your emotions are invalid. Just because they're afraid of closeness doesn't mean you were wrong to want it. In fact, the moment you recognize what's happening, beneath the silence, beneath the withdrawal, beneath the mixed signals, you regain your strength. You stop internalizing his distance as a verdict against your worth. You stop chasing validation from someone who's still learning how to validate themselves. And you begin to stand in the truth of who you are with clarity and compassion. Loving someone with avoidant tendencies doesn't mean losing yourself in the process. It doesn't mean waiting endlessly for change that may or may not come. It means holding two realities at once, understanding the roots of their fear while refusing to abandon your own needs. You don't have to choose between empathy and boundaries. You can love deeply and protect yourself fiercely. You can hold space for someone else's struggle without carrying it on your back. You can remain present while refusing to settle for emotional starvation. This is not about sacrificing your peace in the name of patience. It's about learning how to stay grounded in love without losing your center. Because the truth is, your emotional clarity can become a mirror, reflecting what healthy love looks like. When you stay anchored in your values, when you refuse to play games, when you communicate with honesty and directness, you're not only respecting yourself, you're showing him something different. You're showing him that closeness doesn't have to mean chaos. That connection doesn't have to mean control. That love can be strong, safe, and still sovereign. But remember this, you are not here to fix anyone. You are not here to chase someone through their fear. You are not here to be the exception to their rule. You are here to be fully yourself, to live in the fullness of your truth, and to offer your love from a place of strength, not desperation. You can say, I understand you, without saying, I'll betray myself to stay with you. You can say, I see your fear, without saying, I'll silence my needs so you're comfortable. You can say, I care, while also saying, I won't abandon myself to be chosen. And in doing so, you model something powerful, self-respecting love. The kind of love that doesn't shrink or chase or beg, but stands. The kind of love that holds compassion for someone's fear, without letting that fear dictate the entire relationship. This is how you reclaim your power, not by controlling him, not by fixing him, but by choosing yourself over and over again, by standing your emotional truth even when he pulls away, by saying, I will not force connection, but I will not settle for confusion, by realizing that love isn't about how much you can tolerate, it's about how much you're willing to honor your own heart while being present for someone else's journey. And that choice, that clarity, that unshakable self-awareness, that's what turns patterns into growth. That's what transforms relationships from cycles of pain into conscious connection. That's what shows both of you what real, grounded, transformative love looks like. You are not powerless. You've just forgotten that understanding the wound doesn't mean abandoning your worth. Now is the time to rim. You are not here to relive someone else's trauma. You are not here to replay the emotional loops of your past or theirs. You are here to break cycles, silent ones, painful ones, inherited ones. The ones that keep love trapped in fear. The ones that confuse emotional distance with strength. The ones that taught us to either chase or shut down. You are here to rewrite the story. Yours, his, and the one between you. But you cannot change what you will not see clearly. Avoidant love isn't easy. It doesn't flow the way fairy tales told us it would. It's not effortless. It's complex. It comes wrapped in contradictions, closeness met with withdrawal, warmth followed by silence, deep eye contact that turns into averted gazes the moment feelings get too strong. And if you're not grounded in truth, you'll get caught in the storm. You'll mistake the pattern for passion. You'll interpret the tension as love. You'll keep trying to earn what was never withheld because of you in the first place. The moment you step back and see the full picture, everything begins to shift. You begin to recognize that the cycle doesn't start with you, and it doesn't have to end with pain. You stop internalizing the silence as abandonment, and you start decoding it as an overwhelmed system doing what it was trained to do. You stop reacting to his retreat as a personal failure, and you start seeing it as his way of managing emotional overload. This isn't about accepting less. It's about understanding more. From that understanding, you gain freedom. Because what most people don't realize is this emotional patterns only have power over you if you don't recognize them. Once you see the loop, you can choose a different response. You can breathe instead of beg. You can pause instead of pursue. You can hold your own ground instead of getting pulled into the gravity of someone else's fear. And here's where everything begins to transform. You stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself. You stop molding yourself to be palatable to someone's avoidance and start standing fully in your own emotional truth. You say, this is what I love. This is how I love. This is what I deserve. And in doing so, you invite him gently, silently, powerfully to do the same. But make no mistake, rewriting the story isn't about staying in pain and calling it growth. It's not about excusing emotional distance forever. It's not about clinging to hope while your needs rot quietly inside of you. Rewriting the story means you're willing to look at your own side of the pattern, too. Maybe you were drawn to his emotional unavailability because it felt familiar. Maybe his distance mirrored your own fear of being fully seen. Maybe chasing him kept you from facing the truth that you have wounds to. So the healing goes both ways. It's not just about understanding his behavior. It's about understanding yours. Why do you stay? Why do you reach? Why do you give so much even when your hands come back empty? The moment you start asking those questions is the moment you stop living in a loop and start leading a life that is conscious, deliberate, and rooted in self-worth. This is how cycles break. Not by fixing the other person, but by seeing clearly, speaking clearly, loving clearly, and refusing to participate in dynamics that leave your soul starved and your voice silenced. When you choose clarity over confusion, you change the story. When you hold your boundary without losing your heart, you change the story. When you understand love is not meant to hurt, hide, or hesitate, you rewrite the ending. And maybe, just maybe, he sees the shift in you. Maybe your strength inspires his own. Maybe your stability gives him a new experience of intimacy. One that doesn't feel like drowning, but like breathing for the first time. But even if it doesn't, you've already won. Because you've chosen to break the chain. You are not destined to relive the pain of your past. You are not bound to echo the love stories that wounded you. You have the pen now. Write something true. Write something brave. Write something new. So now you stand at the crossroads. The truth is in front of you. The patterns have been named. The silence decoded. The fear seen not as rejection, but as a symptom of deeper wounds. And the question remains, what will you do with this awareness? Will you keep shrinking yourself to fit inside someone else's emotional limits? Will you keep mistaking emotional starvation for devotion? Will you continue dancing in circles with a heart that only knows how to step forward one day, then disappear the next? Or will you rise? This is the moment where everything changes. Not because he shifts, not because the relationship magically transforms, but because you do. Because you decide to stop waiting for clarity and start becoming it. Because you stop tying your worth to someone else's comfort zone. Because you wake up and realize that love isn't meant to keep you in limbo. It's meant to call you into your highest truth. You've been waiting for someone to meet you in your depth. But have you been standing in it yourself? Have you been anchoring into your own truth so firmly that someone else's fear can't sway your emotional balance? Or have you been holding your breath, waiting for him to feel safe while abandoning the safety of your own soul? It ends here. The doubt, the confusion, the endless analysis of every text, every look, every delay in affection. You don't need to decode anyone anymore. You only need to decide what kind of love you're building. Decide what kind of relationship you're available for. Decide that being loved halfway is no longer enough, not because you're angry, not because you're punishing, but because your soul finally understands its worth. You don't have to walk away to be powerful, and you don't have to stay to prove loyalty. You have the freedom to choose. But whatever you choose, choose from your wholeness, not your wounds. If you stay grounded, stay awake, stay rooted in truth. Let your love be strong, but your boundaries stronger. If you walk with grace, with clarity, with the power of someone who no longer waits to be loved the way they deserve. You are not a victim of someone else's emotional avoidance. You are a creator of your own emotional reality. And if he ever reaches for you again, let him meet the version of you that no longer bends to be seen. The version of you that no longer begs for breadcrumbs. The version of you that knows how to love without losing herself in the process. This is your moment. Not to beg, not to chase, not to fix, but to choose. Choose healing. Choose forward movement. Choose emotional maturity. Choose to live in truth even when it's not easy. Choose to release the illusion that love must always feel like waiting. Choose to embody the kind of love you've always longed to receive. Consistent, clear, conscious, whole. You already know what it feels like to live under the weight of someone else's fear. Now it's time to know what it feels like to stand in the light of your own truth. Let this be the day you stop asking, will he ever love me right? And start declaring, I will never again love myself halfway. Stand up, step forward. Choose transformation. Because your heart wasn't built to survive love, it was built to lead it.